Okay, we're looking at the first part of the prelude now. We've already looked at the overall structure of the poem, or the extract of the poem. Remember, it's part of a larger epic. And we know that there is a change in tone, a change in mood. And that volta, that changing point, comes at the sighting of that huge peak, black and huge, which is a metaphor for the difficulties in life, a metaphor for the great power that nature has over man, and that we can never overcome or even try to match the power of nature. Now, the first half of the poem, if you did that exercise in part one, we separated some of the imagery, and we've got words like glittering, pleasure, sparkling, light in the very first part of the poem. And that gives the opening to the poem quite a joyous, idyllic, pleasant, positive tone. However, all the way through that, there are hints that foreshadow the difficulties that are to come. So one of those is troubled pleasure. If you look at line 6, you've got the oxymoron there, troubled pleasure, and that hints at the change in tone. So although he's enjoying the boat ride, enjoying conquering nature at that point, troubled pleasure, there's a sense that darkness is just around the corner. There's a sense that he's not quite at ease with the journey that he's setting off on. So what I'll do, I'll read through and we'll try and translate. Long poems can seem quite daunting, but this one is really very straightforward. And if you get that basic idea of the journey being a metaphor for the journey through life, and everything representing man as being less powerful than nature, though trying to have power, you'll have the very sense of the poem really in your hand. One summer evening, led by her. That's a link to earlier in the epic poem. I found a little boat tied to a willow tree within a rocky cove, its usual home. So he finds that boat tied up to the tree. So let's take the boat itself. Now, the boat is a metaphor for life's journey. When you have literature that involves travel, it's often a metaphor for life's journey, for self-discovery, for becoming more aware about your life and your surroundings and your place in the world. And this is no exception here. Okay, so it's a metaphor for life's journey. It's also a metaphor for man's power over nature. At this point, we've used the boat, and I mentioned this in part one, we've used the boat to conquer nature, to conquer the lake, but also we've used the wood provided by nature from its trees to craft into something that man can use. So it seems as though man has power over nature at this point. So the metaphor works in two different ways, partly for the journey itself, but also for our power over nature. And notice how he pushed from the shore, unloosed her chain. This is man's attempt to control nature. So although the boat was tied up to the tree, again, another metaphor for nature having that control, man overcomes that power, unlooses the chain, and pushes from the shore. Straight I unloosed her chain, and stepping in, pushed from the shore. It was an act of stealth and troubled pleasure. Stealth, he's doing it secretly. So he feels like he's doing something wrong. It doesn't feel easy to him. And as I've said, that troubled pleasure, that oxymoron, suggesting, hinting, foreshadowing the darkness in mood that is to come. Nor without the voice of mountain echoes did my boat move on. Now, the mountain echoes, if you think about the lake. Now, Wordsworth was inspired by living in the Lake District. And I don't know whether you've ever been there, but it's a place of great beauty. And great natural beauty, and you've got, as the name would suggest, lots of large lakes, but there's an enormous range of hills and mountains around as well. So as he goes through the lake, the natural sounds of the mountains and nature around him echo around him. So again, it's that sense that nature is always watching him, nature is always in his ear, nature is always giving its sounds a presence in his life. Leaving behind her still on either side small circles glittering idly in the moon until they melted all into one track of sparkling light. Now he's getting more confident here. As he rows through, he feels like the moonlight, feels like the moonlight is guiding his path across the lake. And you can think about how light ripples on the surface and sparkles. That's exactly what it was like for him. He felt that nature was coming together for his purpose. He has that great power. But now, like one who rows proud of his skill to reach a chosen point with an unswerving line. So an unswerving line, he's going straight. Nothing is going to stop his path through life, his journey across the lake. And he's proud. He feels like he's in control, he's in charge, he's conquering nature and conquering life as well. Don't forget, you've got the power of nature, but also going through life, it's a journey of self-discovery too. Upon the summit of a craggy ridge, the horizon's utmost boundary. Far above was nothing but the stars and the grey sky. Now, we have a little bit of imagery coming up that can be quite difficult to explain. So I'll put a translation over here. She was an elfin pinnace. Lustily, I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and as I rose upon the stroke, my boat went heaving through the water like a swan. Now, the elfin pinnace, an elf is like a fairy. We know what elf means. An elfin is just the adjective from elf. Now, elves were often connected in mythology to sexual presence, to lustful feelings. And a pinnace is the boat. So it suggests that nature is leading on. There is a sense here of sexual fulfillment, that he's becoming maybe sexually mature. So it's a journey through life. It's at this point he feels like he's in power over everything around him. But even the simile that is today's or this session's key quote is laced with trouble as well. So he went heaving through the water like a swan. It sounds like he's elegant and graceful. And certainly on the surface, a swan is. So we've got that sense that he feels in control, he feels masterful, he feels like he's gliding through easily. But he doesn't glide through the water like a swan. So although we've got that elegant presence, that ease with which a swan moves through the water, we've also got the verb heaving. And that sounds like hard work. It's not coming naturally to him. He realizes that life, although it looks easy, is becoming more difficult. Nature, although it looks easy to conquer, actually is quite difficult to conquer. And the very act of rowing, his boat may be sailing quite smoothly across the water, but actually it's requiring a lot of hard work to conquer nature. Maybe as a man, he's not as powerful as he thought he was. Now also, we've got the sense, because it's a simile, it's like something else. Went heaving through the water like a swan. And so we've got this sense as well that whatever man does, all it can ever do is copy nature, to mimic nature. So although he feels like he's conquering nature and looking very smooth, actually he's just copying nature. And it's very hard work. Perhaps man doesn't have the power, and perhaps he doesn't have the power that he first thought he did.